A 6-month Larry Barker investigation finds a loophole in New Mexico law that allows convicted felons to beat the system. Violent offenders, embezzlers, and con artists are being handed a free ride courtesy of a broken system, and nobody seems to be able to stop them. Here's Larry's investigation.
It's astonishing.
We're not happy about it. It's very frustrating.
This has got to be one of the biggest outrages I've ever seen.
No one understands the flaw in our criminal justice system better than Mike and Barbara Nord. Their 14-year-old son, Reese, was struck and killed by drunk driver Justin Michal 15 years ago.
It disrupted everything that was normal for our lives.
There's still a lot of emptiness and sorrow. The shock wave is not measurable.
Every day we miss Reese.
Michal served time for vehicular homicide, and he was ordered to pay restitution to the Nords to cover Reese's medical and funeral costs. However, in complete defiance of the court order, Michal refused to pay his restitution.
It was so incredible that he could actually sleep at night knowing that he's the one that killed my son, and I paid for the ambulance. He kills my son, I pay for the helicopter. He kills my son, I have to even pay for his cemetery plot. I couldn't get my brain wrapped around the fact that what the judge had ordered meant nothing.
It's not only Justin Michal. A 6-month News 13 investigation finds many convicted criminals don't pay their victim restitution. Even though state law requires it, there's a loophole that allows convicted felons to beat the system. Prosecutors and judges are powerless to force criminals to comply with court-ordered restitution. And even though judges can revoke probation for unpaid restitution, that virtually never happens. Raul Torres is the Bernalillo County District Attorney.
Do you think the general public out there realizes that on this issue, the defendants actually can beat the system?
No, I don't think most people understand that. And quite honestly, I think most folks inside the system don't recognize the scale of the problem when it comes to restitution.
For example, consider the case of Ricky Leyba. After he shot 2 bystanders at a Santa Fe nightclub, Leyba was convicted of aggravated battery. His sentence included $500,000 in restitution to cover his victim's medical expenses. However, once Leyba got off parole, he stopped making payments. He owes $492,000 in unpaid restitution. Tucked in the Victims Restitution Act is a provision that gives the state authority to enforce court-ordered restitution only during an offender's probation or parole period.
Do you have the power to force a defendant to pay court-ordered restitution once they are discharged from probation?
Larry, unfortunately, no, we do not have that authority.
Corrections Secretary David Jablonski oversees state probation and parole.
As it relates to court-ordered restitution, the defendants beat the system, yes?
Larry, I have to agree with you. I mean, we can't recoup those funds for those victims, and these offenders got off supervision without making those victims whole.
A list of felons who got a free ride from the system reads like a who's who of the criminal underworld. Adrian Romero was sent to the state pen for fraud and forgery in connection with a phony hunting scheme. He stopped making restitution payments after his discharge from parole, and today Romero owes his victims more than $186,000. Ivan Benavides shot and injured a juvenile in traffic. As part of his plea deal, Benavides agreed to pay his victim's medical expenses. However, Benavides stopped paying restitution after his probation ended. Today, he owes his victim $77,000. Deborah Doffelmeyer embezzled from her Santa Fe employer. Her guilty plea included a promise to pay restitution. However, Doffelmeyer stopped paying once she had completed her probation. Doffelmeyer walked away without reimbursing the $197,000 she stole from her victim. Agnes Sanchez was a clerk at the DMV, but got caught for tax evasion and embezzlement. As part of her plea, she agreed to pay the money back. When her probation ended, so did her restitution payments. Agnes Sanchez skipped out on $69,000. Embezzler Becky Serrano's free ride was $126,000. Conman Eric Turan got away without reimbursing his victim $100,000. Fraudster Loretta Gallegos skipped out on $149,000. The list goes on and on. Maria McCloskey, Luis Carrillo, Damian Rivera, Diana Romero all cheated the system by refusing to pay court-ordered restitution.
Restitution is, frankly, the most direct way that a defendant is accountable directly to their victim. Whenever you see a failure of this type, it undermines confidence in the entire system.
Even though the state has no power to enforce restitution once probation has been completed, the Corrections Department does require signed promissory notes in which the defendant agrees to pay outstanding restitution. For example, after Deborah Doffelmeyer completed probation last year, she signed a promissory note agreeing to pay her victim $100 a month until the debt is paid off. At that rate, it will take Doffelmeyer 163 years to meet her restitution obligation.
What is the power of this department to enforce those promissory notes?
Absolutely none, Larry. Unfortunately, after they discharge from our jurisdiction and our authority, these offenders stop paying despite having that promissory note.
It looks to me like the promissory notes are really worthless pieces of paper.
Well, as far as enforcement, Larry, you're absolutely right.
This loophole in this statute is un-American, it's unfair, and it victimizes victims all over again.
State Senator Mark Moores has sponsored a bill closing the restitution loophole. However, lawmakers have shown no interest in the issue.
I think most felons and criminals in the state of New Mexico know that there's a big loophole, and that is inexcusable. The word is out. These criminals are not fulfilling their obligation to the people of our state.
Despite the legislature's reluctance to fix the problem, D.A. Torres says he will explore other ways to compel compliance, such as placing liens on property and garnishing wages.
I don't view this as a technical violation. I think it's something that victims have a right to expect. We're going to work hard to make sure it starts to happen more often.
You call this fair? These families that are hurting, and we just need somebody to say, we're on your side.
This is pretty pathetic. It's pretty sad. He walked away, and we barely even got an apology out of the darn thing.
Larry Barker, KRQE, News 13.